Bob's not here, too. Bob's in Alaska? Nice.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming this afternoon. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Molly, if you could help us with the roll call, please.
Sure. Kent Atwell.
Present.
Tim Eicher.
Here.
Dan Cahalan. He's here. He's on Zoom. Trying to get him to unmute.
I see him.
And
Here.
all right. Well, we see him.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Dave Greenway.
Here.
Ed Merrick.
Here.
Laura Schultz.
Here.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Okay, we will move on to item number 4, the minutes. Anybody have any
I'll make a
changes?
motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. Okay, number 5, citizens' comments for items on or off the agenda. Any citizens that would like to come up and speak? Any citizens? All right, seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. We'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda. Would anybody like to pull anything off the consent agenda? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions passes. So, Sun Valley Drive, you're approved. Gulf Road, owner Shops Nagawaka Equity LLC and Shops in Nagawaki, you're approved. Marie. The Friends of the Delafield Library are approved. Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC, applicant Robert Brown is approved. And so is Hendricks Commercial Properties, Amy Quinn. They're all approved. You are free to go unless you'd like to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Just clarification, Shops in Nagawaki, that was for the business plan of operation only.
Okay, now we'll move on to, and I misspoke before, that was for, the citizens' comments were for the consent agenda. Actually, now we're having citizens' comments for anything not on the consent agenda, so anything else. Assuming we had nobody from last time, I'm assuming we have none for this. Citizens' comments are now closed. Number 7 is done. We'll move on to 8, unfinished business. A, DELC 06211015, 3601 Trinity Lane, owner Michael and Ann Gagliano, applicant Peter Fitchmeyer, Colby Construction, applicant is requesting approval of a boathouse. Who's here to speak on that?
Jim Engel and myself.
Great, come on up to the mics, gentlemen. Amy, you want to give us a rundown?
Sure. First and last name of the two folks that are speaking.
Yeah, Pete Feitmeyer, Feichtmeyer.
And Jim Angle, Angle.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
So the boathouse proposal was on the last agenda in June, so I won't go over any of the details. What we did determine at the last meeting is that the property is part of a plan unit development, and with that plan unit development, they were required to comply with the conservation easement restrictions, which does limit the location of the boathouse and the overall size of the boathouse to 14 feet, or the width to 14 feet in width. And they did reach out to the holders of the conservancy easement, the Waukesha Land Conservancy, and to see if there's any opportunity to make modifications. They were uninterested in changing the provisions. So the applicant willingly reduced the size of the boathouse, and so that is what is being proposed tonight. Everything else is the same. In the packet, they did also include the color of the stone, which you can see on the screen for the boathouse, and then the specific light. So last month, there were a few different lighting options. This month, they narrowed that down to the this gooseneck light. Everything will be downcast. So based on that, unless you have additional questions, I won't go over any more details other than to provide a recommendation that you make a motion to approve, subject to the boathouse only being used for the storage of marine and accessory items used for the occupants of the lot. No human habitations permitted. There shall be no plumbing inside the boathouse unless approval is granted by the building inspector in compliance with the zoning code. The installation of all bathroom facilities typically found in a primary residence are prohibited. The boathouse is currently limited to an outdoor hose, bib, and shower. The rooftop deck railing shall not exceed 4 feet in height and be at least 50% open. And that came from the lake welfare. Illumination from the lighting shall not extend beyond the property boundaries and shall only produce downcast light. And the rain garden has to be constructed in compliance with the DNR publication. And the boathouse shall be placed on a code-compliant permanent foundation that extends below the frost line or be placed on a concrete slab.
Any other comments that you're aware of or concerns from Lake Welfare,
No.
Dave?
Not with this one.
Okay.
Well, I have a quick question. Is there any of those 7 conditions that you have any issues with, that the city planner just stated?
No.
right.
The only thing I would add is we did submit a updated Yankee and Yankee because the boathouse is smaller. It moved slightly, obviously 2 feet, and we did note that on the updated survey.
And the boathouse complies with all other city ordinance requirements, so they should be fine.
So if there aren't any other questions, I think we're looking for a motion to approve.
Make the motion to approve with the Amy's list.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Is that
guys.
easy?
It was
Easier.
second time's the charm.
So what I do need to do is issue a certificate of compliance to Scott, and then Scott's able to release the building permit. I don't know if you've applied for that formally or not, but,
Have not, but we will know.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, we'll move on to 8B, DLC 0742982 and DLC 07439999009, Nashotah Road, Delafield, owner Hawthorne Farms Property LLC, applicant Seatman Realty. Care of John Seatman, applicant seeks approval of preliminary plat to accommodate a conservancy designed residential subdivision. Come on up.
So you don't have to wait all night this time.
Right.
And name and address, please.
Jim Seatman, West 240, North 1221, Pewaukee Road.
Okay, Amy, you want to kick us off, or you want Jim
Yeah.
to go first?
I'll just go, I think if we just go in order of my staff report, and then we can kind of discuss each item one at a time. I'll try not to go into a great explanation. We've talked about this plat quite a bit in the past. As you know, it's a proposed subdivision in the northwest corner of the city, and they recently did go through approval, and they have a land use plan amendment, a rezone, and a conditional use approval for a general development plan. That did get passed through the Common Council. I just need to work with them to record the general development plan and exhibits. We have what we need, and we can actually at the city level probably go ahead and record that if you're comfortable. And then, so just as a recap, the approved land use category is now rural estate, which is a 2-acre minimum density. And then there's also conservancy on the property. And then the approved zoning category is RE2, 2-acre rural estate, which is also 2-acre minimum normally lot size, but they have the plan unit development that allows them to flex that. And then both of those are subject to all of the conditions spelled out in the ordinance, which are included in the packet. There are quite a few conditions. So the preliminary plat layout is, for right now, it includes the development of phase 1, which are the 22 single-family lots in the northeast corner of the subdivision. And then the rest of the acreage are divided up into outlots. The outlot that's encompassed in this phase 1, which you can see on the screen, which surrounds the single-family development, will be owned in undivided fractional ownership. And then there's the 4-acre-ish park in the southwest corner of the development. That will be dedicated to the city. And then the rest of the outlots will be retained in ownership by the property owner until they are developed in the future. And those acreages are subject to this particular development in accordance with the ordinance. There's also a reservation that goes to the Binkowski property. Let's see, it's on page 2 here. You can see that was one of the requirements before they developed phase 1. They needed to show, I zoomed in a little too far, show the reservation at least. Any financial and construction obligations can take place at time of future phase development. The only, I guess the question I would have related to that specifically, Jim, would be, will that outlot still be owned by the property owner and reserved for city road purposes, or be dedicated to the city now?
Just a reservation now.
Okay,
When that develops, then it'll be dedicated.
okay. And then also the outlot 1, on the plat, Tony has on there that it's an undivided fractional ownership, 1/22nd interest. Do you intend on including, when I read through the subdivision restrictions, it states that the future phases will also be part owners of that? What are your intentions there? If it's everyone, we'll just clean up the note on the plat. Otherwise, you might need to clean up the note in the restrictions.
I'm just trying to find the plat to know the outlot you're talking about.
The outlot surrounding the 22 lots. Outlot 1.
That'll be
With the barn.
undivided interest to the 22 lots for now.
Okay.
Just. But we're hoping that as we continue this, that home ownership will expand. Our deed
Okay.
restrictions allow for that.
Yep, okay. So we might want to just tweak the link, like the plat, and may expand to include
Yep.
owners of future phases.
Okay.
So I have a little table in here that talks about the flexibility that was provided as part of the general development plan. And then as far as the preliminary plat goes, I just have some conditions spelled out. I don't, unless you want to go through them, I don't think we need to go through them in great detail. They're technical comments. I do write in there that the city should determine if the trail construction in the future phases should be done now or later. I have since learned that the Public Works Committee has reviewed and approved plans for just phase 1. And I did talk to the city administrator, and he agreed that construction of phase 1 would be appropriate at this time. And then we will want.
So is that part of what is being proposed?
Yes.
What this is, okay.
Yes. And then the public emergency access and public paths will need to be in an easement. So I make that comment, and so does the surveyor. We'll work with the developers to make sure that gets completed and that the maintenance provisions are in one of these documents, whether it be on the plat, a separate easement, or developer's agreement. We'll figure that out before they go to Common Council. Other than that, do you need me to go through all of the comments? It's just.
Has this updated wetland delineation been done?
Yeah, they did have an updated wetland confirmation. I believe what that report is trying to say is that the previous boundaries are still acceptable. So they did have that updated, and then they will need DNR permits, and the DNR has to review that again. So if there are any issues, it's going to get hung up at the DNR level. And then the surveyor just had a few minor comments. The engineer has reviewed the plat and the letter. Their comments are included in the packet. The property is sized appropriately for stormwater facilities. They just have to, they're still taking care of the fine details. And I believe Tony just resubmitted stormwater management information this week, so that'll be reviewed. That'll need to be finalized before Common Council review. So that's all I have for the preliminary plat, unless you have any questions, and then I'll talk about the specific implementation plan. No questions?
So I don't know where the right spot is for them, but I know that when we had the preliminary approval of this, we were talking about the 4-acre dedication of
Yes.
land to the park, to the city for a park, and that it was explicitly stated that there'd be an allowance for that to be used for some sort of stormwater management. Is that indicated in here in any way? Or is now the time to do that? Or
I didn't see it, but
Yeah, it's not on the plat, and that's not necessarily where it needs to be. I think, I actually did talk to Mike Court about this, and I think we were going to throw that in the developers agreement. And I don't know what you're comfortable, we could put a note on the plat.
I just talked to the legal counsel for the owner, and we are going to suggest it in the developers
Oh,
agreement,
okay.
and we've got that redlined in already, so you'll
Okay.
see that maybe even tomorrow.
Okay, so, I mean, that's what, the engineer is comfortable with that language. If
Okay, I'd like to make sure that that's
Yeah.
taken care of, so we don't have to circle back to this if we
We
don't
agree.
take, okay.
And then, so if there are no other questions, they also need specific implementation. This will have to come back for final plat approval, but before they can start construction, they need to get specific implementation plan approval for phase 1. This is my first one with the city, so if you guys need more or less information, let me know. So the general development plan was subject to several things being met as part of this SIP. And so I bolded those in this letter, one of them being the detailed stormwater management, utility connection plans, public road improvement construction plans, trail construction plans, and grading plan. That's all been submitted and again, currently being reviewed by the engineer, and they're working through the fine details. I guess the only comment I would make is the master grading plan does include some significant grading, so that their subdivision restrictions refer to all grading activities having to be reviewed and approved by the city engineer. So Scott and Mike can talk about that in the next couple of weeks to determine how they coordinate those efforts during home construction. And maybe the plan is very specific about what's approved, so if Scott feels like it's in substantial compliance, he probably doesn't need to talk to I don't know how that will work, but you may not always need to talk to the engineer. Then there is any questions about the construction plans? Nope. Lighting plan, they are not proposing a lighting plan, if I read through the plans correctly. They'll rely on individual homeowners to propose lighting on their private lots.
Just two small lots at the end, or two small lights at the entryway on the two monuments, and that's it.
Oh, there are? I did not catch that. What kind of lights? Spotlights?
Yep, uplights.
That's it?
Or maybe I did when I talk about signage.
That was one of my questions, is I didn't see, and this could be in the next part, but I didn't see the entrance design and how that was gonna look.
It is in here.
Is it in there?
Sure.
It's small when you're looking at these on the.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
we'll
actually,
get there.
I happen to have that
Here's
page up and
dimensions
it's
of
on the
it.
right. Okay.
Um,
Doesn't show the lights though, or it does show?
Well, I missed it. I don't know if it does
Page
or not.
126?
Yeah, here. So here's the entrance monuments, and then they're going to have a fence along Nashotah Road, and then some small signage.
Nice.
I don't think there's anything about the lights on here, so maybe just update that plan with the spotlights.
They're really soft. We're really trying to keep it understated and more like a farmstead look to it.
Right.
So it'll be soft, but you need something there to let people know that there is
This
an
is where you
entryway
turn.
there.
Right.
So,
We've had, I've been involved with other entrances, and I'm forgetting the name of the place, but they put,
Sanctuary.
yes, they put these giant floodlights on their thing, and,
these are
Yeah.
gonna be really small, little uplights.
okay, yeah.
Good.
Okay. So then moving on to the landscape plan, they are proposing landscaping along Nashotah Road. They'll have some nice trees that border the trail, and then they have the fencing that you can see the image on the plan. They also have some trees that will line the entrance from the Nashotah Road to the start of the lots. They'll have their stormwater facility, which will be filled with plantings, which will look attractive. And then the open space areas that are currently I don't know if they're in agricultural use right now, but fields, I'll just say fields. Those are going to be planted in a meadow. And then they do have a couple trees where the trail crosses the new cul-de-sac to kind of identify that space. They are proposing vegetation in the island, so they'll have to have an easement for that too, to make sure that the homeowners are the ones responsible for maintaining the island landscaping. But they've got a mix of grasses, wildflowers, small trees, and mowed grass.
Can you please blow up the area along the path? When I blew it up in the PDF, it would blur and I couldn't tell. I didn't know if those were bushes, trees, I just couldn't tell.
They are hard to read on here because they
The bigger
they
I
come
make
through
it,
as
the
images.
blurrier it gets.
They're trees.
Those are all trees?
All pine and hardwood trees.
Okay,
No
okay.
bushes.
I didn't know if they were bushes, or I didn't know what they were.
Everything, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but everything are trees except for the island and the cul-de-sac.
That is correct.
And then, as I guess I could mention there, they also submitted an open space management plan, which we reviewed, and we just submitted a few comments to them regarding buckthorn management. They have a paragraph in there. I think there's mention about critical species, and I mean, there's just a couple little things that need to be cleaned up or potentially clarified. But otherwise, it's a really well-written management plan. That, you know, encourages them to not only maintain what's there, but to also do additional, you know, kind of excite the owners to do additional preservation activities in the future at their own goodwill. They are proposing to remove some trees where they have that, to the west of this phase, there's that tree line that goes between the two fields, and their stormwater facility is on the other side of the tree line. And so you know, as part of all of the grading activities, they do need to remove the trees that you can see lined up in this crosshatched area. 4 of those are considered priority trees or quality trees and need to be mitigated for. And unfortunately, one of them is huge. There's one 45-inch oak that takes up most of that 81 inches. Is there any way to save it?
Yeah.
Obviously, probably not,
It's
right?
got to be over 100 years old.
I know, it's a shame, but there's no way. There's a peninsula in that island where we're putting the stormwater and it's right on the peninsula.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
We couldn't save it.
Okay, so the, all of the trees that they're planting along Neshota Road are certainly sufficient enough to accommodate the requirement for mitigation. And again, this will all be spelled out in the SIP, developers agreement, and I think what I'll do for Common Council is refer to the specific approved plans that they would be adopting.
I mean, it's worth noting that between what the homeowners are going to plant in trees and what's along the road,
Do me more.
it's going to be
Yeah.
a net huge gain for hardwoods in the city. I mean, it's corn and chemicals right now is what's there.
Yeah, the road frontage will,
So-
the road frontage will look beautiful,
But
you know,
I'm
along
just-
Neshota Road. It changes that
It's
feel.
very seldom you get a development where you're putting foundations and streets in and you're getting a net huge gain in trees, and this is going to be one of them.
Will we get a listing of what types of trees?
They're on the plan,
Yeah.
in that upper corner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and check that.
Just
Yeah, and if you need to look, I have a hard copy plan here and maybe upstairs.
Okay.
It is hard to read on.
It is.
So just
By
a
the time you
quick-
shrink it down to fit your computer, you don't.
Yeah, when you
see
get bigger,
anything.
it was even blurry.
I don't even think
don't know
it's
if how we
that.
scanned it in or what, but.
Yeah, when you put it into Laserfish, it has to go in as, it turns into an image and it
Yeah.
blurs it.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. I'm assuming you know this, but the trees along the path, are those trees that don't have high roots, you know, like ones you'd put by sidewalks so they don't 15, 20 years from
we're so
now
inactive.
rip up the blacktop?
That's a really good question.
I know.
We'll look at that. It's a good question.
Yeah, it is.
Mary.
Or make sure they're far
Yeah.
enough away. You
We
can
just
probably
pull 'em back
manipulate that.
farther, just to make sure, because there are oaks and things that do have a shallow root system on the top, so
Okay.
we'll take care of
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I'll make a note to,
Yeah,
Good.
look at that. I think they're off far enough, but we'll just make sure.
Okay. Thank you.
and then the signage, you can see here, you know, again,
Yeah.
they have the monuments and then they will have little brass name plaques with the subdivision name within each monument. I just want to make sure, Scott, that you and I just have a note in here, we make sure that he complies with road setback requirements from Neshota Road. I don't know if the city ordinance has a monument setback.
Got a vision triangle in there.
Yeah, and I think we're out of it. We'll make sure.
Are the monuments these two,
Yeah.
assuming they're the two rectangles? Okay. And then the developers agreement, I didn't even include it in the packet. The developer is, working on redlining a version that we had. So we will be reviewing that very carefully, the engineer, planner, attorney, and city staff for common council. So, I mean, you can decide whether or not you feel like you need to see it, but it will go to common council for review and approval. The developer's hoping they can do that in August. Not sure if you're still on a path for proposed construction.
September 1.
September 1. So if you did want to see it, it would need to be at the end of August. Hopefully after, it would actually be after council because they can't start construction without it being approved. But we have all of the requirements of what needs to be included, and they're pretty well laid out in the general development plan as well. And then they prepared final subdivision restrictions, which were included in the packet. Those include their own standards for building restrictions, construction methods and responsibilities, limited improvements on the lots and in the open spaces, maintenance, common area restrictions, and then the creation and management of the homeowners maintenance homeowners association, and other miscellaneous items. They also have to pay a $40,000, approximately $40,000 pay in lieu fee for the installation, in lieu of the installation of an underground storage tank. So, if no further questions.
So I just have a couple of questions. I don't know if it should be I think they're in the next part, but I'm not going to let this one pass without asking. So the homeowners covenant with all the rules and restrictions, is that in this one or is that in the next one?
It's in this, so there's two motions. I'm talking about everything right now.
Oh, you're talking, okay, so you want everything, okay.
Yeah, the subdivision restrictions are in the packet. I mean, I didn't go into any detail with them. I did read through them. We'll make sure Hamas reads through them one last time. And
Okay.
once in a while you end up with conflicts and we want to make sure everything matches. So like the outlot ownership bit, we want to just make sure that matches clearly with the plan.
So I had a question about page 141, item 5.2.6. And, I understand why this might be in there because of the private path network that's in there, but, the city of Delafield does allow bow hunting, and your restrictions have no hunting or trapping.
Correct.
Any thoughts about any logic to allowing bow hunting since it's allowed in the rest of the city?
I wouldn't have any problem adding it.
Allowing
No,
it?
he wants it deleted.
Right now it's a prohibited.
It's prohibited.
It's prohibited.
And he wants it.
I'm asking if bow hunting could be
The
allowed.
herd of deer in this community is
Substantial.
high, and I think it'd be worthwhile at least, probably write it in such a way that it has to have HOA approval, so we don't have some issues there, but.
100 hunters?
Yeah,
And define the areas that it would be allowed.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think we have no problem with that in there.
Good, good.
Is that bow hunting only?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what's allowed in the
Oh,
city.
Okay.
and maybe in that, put in compliance with city regulations so that it's clear.
Don't create your own.
Yeah, I've learned about boathouses already.
Okay, so then I have a number of questions about the public redlined path. And I'll start on page 66 along Neshota Road. So at the east end where it ties into the street edge, the city's preference and the way we've installed all other paths, and I believe there's standards around this, but when a path butts into a road, it needs to be at a 90-degree angle. I believe that's a safety issue, and your drawings are showing it at something other than 90 degrees.
We'll comply with whatever the city needs
Okay.
with regard to the trail.
So
I
when
think that was reviewed though by, do you remember
Yeah.
anybody saying anything about that?
Well, I know the engineers did review it. I don't know if it's in their stormwater letter or not, but we can certainly, based on plan commission discussion, make sure that gets adjusted.
And that 90-degree issue, I learned about that because when the safety path was put in on Nagawicca Road recently, the contractor had to rip out the connections and redo them to make them 90 degrees. Because they were not installed at 90 degrees.
Okay.
And the city also has a requirement about putting in one of those metal yellow grip plates
Yep.
at intersections, and I don't see that detail on these drawings.
I think that was in the review letter from the engineer.
Was
Yeah, I
that
mean,
in
that
there?
is one
Stated
thing,
that.
is there's probably a bunch of
He
stuff.
said that
Okay,
we
yeah.
have those
We could-
plates.
If it's already in there,
Yeah.
wonderful.
But I'll put it on just to make sure
Okay.
on my list.
Yeah, that's for ADA
and-
compliance.
Yeah.
And that comes I've listed out the different ones, it's all the connections, the east side, the west side, it's wherever it connects, 90 degrees, and the metal plate, metal yellow plate.
Yep.
And it would also apply to, and then my next question is, where the path, intersection, and I think this is also on page 66, but maybe at the top half where it intersects with the emergency road.
It's real slow.
So the commission might agree this is okay in this situation, but normally, this is an emergency road. This is not a regular road that you have drawn here, but normally we don't like to mix vehicles and people. And we typically would say it needs to cross the road, butt up to the road before it hits the road. And then the other side, the south side of the road would have to meet up to it. Are you following me? The way you have it now, the path dead ends into the road. You have to walk on the road to then cross the street to get to the path.
They're using that emergency access path as part of the trail system, just so you know.
Okay.
We
And,
talk about that.
how often do we think there's going to be vehicles on there?
It's really for fire, isn't it?
Right. that's
Hopefully
fine.
never.
Okay, so never.
Yeah, this is
And-
similar to the road by Carriage Hill, not Carriage Hills, Mission Prairie.
Mission Prairie, exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Okay.
We actually purposely diverted
Okay, got it.
pedestrians on that in the
just-
same manner.
I just wanted to bring it up. It looked odd, and if we don't think there's hardly any traffic on there, sounds great.
There's a post there, isn't there? Isn't there going to be
Yes.
there's a post to stop traffic there but for an emergency, there's no way you could go on it.
Right.
I see, gotcha, okay. And then if we could go to page 67,
That's it.
I'm a little confused right there about this layout here. It looks like as the path comes along, it makes the curve, starts heading to the south on Mission Road, and then it jogs and it appears to me become attached to the actual Mission Road. My first comment is, paths aren't as safe when they're attached to a road, and I'm not sure why we're doing that here. And the other question was, I know there was some discussion about trying to tie this in a way that was favorable to that neighborhood just to the south of there, and is this what we had talked about? Tim, I'm hoping you might be able to help me here.
I'm trying to figure out where north is.
North is to the right of the screen, so Mission Road is to the west of the development.
Something in my mind is there was some kind of road or something.
So Lot 6 is the park. Okay. So
They
that's,
needed to connect to the road in the next development. Is it because you,
Red Chapel Court. And there's a stormwater basin right at that corner of Red Chapel Court between the road and that property line. So it forces you to push that path to the west. Plus, we don't have any rights to go through an outlot.
right, that's what I was.
Then, because we don't own it, it's owned by 9 property owners over there. So I don't think you could get a path, because that's where the overflow for the stormwater basin is right into the ditch line of that, to keep that path on the outlot. But we can take a look at it, but
Jim, you're not connected to the physical road, you're just you're in the right of way of
We're
the
in the
road,
right of
but he's not connected to the actual road.
When I blow up the drawing, I can't really tell.
So-
I'm assuming it's abutted to the road.
Here,
I can't tell.
can you see you can see my cursor? This here, where my cursor is?
Yes.
Can you see that? That's
Paving?
the edge of the road.
Oh, I see.
correct.
Okay, so there's 10, maybe, at least 6 feet between the edge of the road and where that path is after it jogs. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Right? I have the cursor on the edge of the road. That's the
yeah.
right of way is a lot wider than the actual road.
It's right against the right-of-way line.
How wide is your path?
8
8
feet.
feet.
Yeah. There's,
Okay.
you got
Right,
8-foot path, there's at least 10 feet, I'll bet, to the road.
So it sounds good that we are separated. Tim, any comments on connecting, or are you good with that? And do we want to 90-degree angle it into the road so that the person is returned back to the road, or just walks into a dead end of grass?
I'd say if there's an opportunity to talk to the homeowners association at Mission Prairie when this is getting developed, like this is fine. Like for how it is right now, it's a huge improvement over what we're dealing with.
Yes.
But if there's like a closer to game day decision or agreement that could be hashed out with the Mission Prairie subdivision on where that could cut into Red Chapel Court in that corner somehow, that'd be optimal. But I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
Because it, like I said, it's a huge improvement over what's going on right now.
I think if we wanted to approve something tonight, we should stick with city policy and have it 90-degree angle into the road with the yellow plate and take it from
And that would
there.
that would at least give caution to people making their decision there as far as what they're doing. So yeah, I agree.
When it's right away.
When it attaches to the road.
Every access to a public road will be a 90-degree for the trail.
There you go.
And that'll
Yeah,
just cover
yeah.
all of it.
Yep, it does.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm suggesting, that if as soon as dirt starts getting moved here, the people at Mission Prairie are gonna realize that it's happening. You know, I'm not saying that they're sleeping, but like that's when it's gonna be like, hey, what's going on with the trail? And then if they want to rise to the occasion and figure out how to connect it and maybe put up some of their own money to make things work, I know you'd be flexible to work with them. All right.
He just doesn't want to add any more linear feet of path.
Well, but one of the requirements is that you physically connect it to Red Chapel Court.
And it does, right?
And it does, but, you know, if it's in the right of way, you're right at the intersection, so you have to go into that outlot.
How do you get into it without their permission?
Yeah.
I think give me enough latitude here to talk to them. I know them well. Obviously, we built it, so we'll see what we can get done. But if I've got a couple guys over there that are hard-nosed. They might say, we're not letting you go into the outlot. And
Yeah.
If they do, we're forced in the right-of-way. So.
Okay, anything else?
So, was it for me?
No. So I have two separate motions. I think we have two separate agenda items. One is to recommend that the Plan Commission recommend that Common Council approve the preliminary plat subject to compliance with city planner, surveyor, and engineering comments prior to the submittal of a final plat, which will come back to you. And then the other is that the Plan Commission recommend that Common Council conditionally approve the specific implementation plan components as described in this report, subject to final review and approval of all required plans and documents by the administrator, planner, surveyor, engineer, and attorney as necessary, including the following, which is a list of documents. And then just, I don't have listed the landscape and mitigation. That's part of the developer's agreement, listed specifically in the developer's agreement. We did talk this morning, all those documents have to be approved before going to Common Council. They need to review and approve the final.
I did have one other question. If you go back to any one of the lots,
Hold on, I'm actually looking at Waukesha County GIS here, so I gotta find my, okay. You want me to zoom out just in the
yeah, just zoom out
subdivision?
to any one of the lots.
Let's see, where was that? Hold on, 66. I should be zoom out. Okay.
Is the dotted line within the property, is that the buildable site,
No.
the pad?
The box on each lot, that's just a basic setup of a 65 by 65 foot box to just give us an idea of the grading on each lot. And then when we submit to Scott for a permit, we'll do an individual grading plan for the lot for that specific house. But this is just to give you an idea of what the grading would be, because we need to know the drainage down the lot lines.
He's referring to the preliminary plat has your typical
Oh,
building.
that one,
There's
yes.
a
Setback
dotted
requirements.
line,
That
there's-
is the dotted
They are
line.
the
that's the
requirements.
pad,
Yep.
the
so
pad
we-
site.
Correct. We won't
That's
put
all I
that
wanna
on the
know.
final, but on the preliminary, it gives you an idea of where they could put the house.
That won't be on the final?
Typically, you don't put it on the final because of,
He'd like it on the final.
No, but it's different because they specify the street setback could be at 50 feet and the side and rear, I think each are 20.
And that's the site they can build on.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. I have plats out there that don't have that.
That don't have that.
And then have a generic typical, which doesn't have a whole lot of meaning.
So one of my comments in here for the final plat is for them to insert, so it's nice when they reference the fact that this is part of a planned development. Because as a planner, I like to look at plats when I review stuff. And then to insert the table, the flexibility table. So whether they put them as typical envelopes or not, then the table's right there. This is what the ordinance specifies. I think that.
or if they change the ordinance, it goes to the ordinance.
And we could say.
Good man.
The note can say, or as modified by the ordinance.
A more flexible modification,
We all-
not more restricted.
Yeah.
I did have one other question I thought of. How do you, and I don't have a preference, I'm just curious, how do you get to and from the barn? I don't see like a path or something, and you don't show any landscaping around the barn. Is that
There's gonna be
intentional, or?
landscape- There'll be landscaping around we didn't want to give you too much.
Okay.
Took it deep, but it'll be landscaped, and there is, the path goes right next to it to
Okay,
get into it.
okay. But you're gonna have like some kind of walkway or something?
Yeah, there'll be connections to it.
Okay.
And I think they show, can you see there's a, part of the private path goes right up to the barn?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In that picture, it looks a lot better. I guess I was looking at a different version where it seemed like it was
Right.
fairly far away.
And to give you an idea, if you took the center of that box, there's 3 boxes, the center one with the writing in it, that's the real actual size of the barn.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as big.
I think that's what it shows on,
Oh.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
it's not nearly as large.
And then the maintenance of that barn will be
Is all-
spelled out in the documents as well. Because it will be owned in undivided fractional ownership, so. Without specific maintenance provisions, it could be left to fall apart.
It's a metal barn, so it's pretty maintenance-free, and a concrete floor, so it doesn't have much to it. And large speakers for live music.
Nope, you were doing really good.
And a bar.
I think I write in my report here, I forgot to mention it, that it's for private purposes only.
Jim, is this a parade site by chance?
We're hoping to make it a parade site.
So then, have you thought about having certain number of building permits released prior to binder? I don't know if that helps or not.
It always helps, yes.
Think about it.
Okay. That'd be part of the developer's agreement, so, all right. Thank you.
Scott, I think we're going to try to meet with him and Attorney Hamas and stuff. Maybe you should sit in on that meeting.
Did Dan have any questions, Molly? Okay. We'll assume Dan on Zoom is good. Want to take a crack at the motion?
I think I have it. I mean, I think I'm going. Let me tell me if I miss anything, Amy. Yes, I recommend that the Common Council approve the preliminary plat subject to compliance with city planner, surveyor, and engineering comments prior to the submittal of a final plat.
I'll second.
Short and sweet.
Laura, you second?
Yeah, I second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstentions? Passes.
And I'll recommend that the Common Council conditionally approve the specific implementation plan components as described in this report, subject to final review and approval of all required plans and documents by city administrator, city planner, city surveyor, city engineer, and city attorney as necessary, including the list of 6 items in the planner's letter in the packet, and subject to obviously the lighting of the sign that was discussed on the entrance of the property, and the amendment to change all access points to paths and roads to be 90 degrees.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Dig.
Excited to get it started. So, thanks.
We're excited to have you, and we're excited to have you get it started. Too.
Right now.
The win.
A little busy.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to number 9, new business. A, DLC 06240040001 Valley Road. Owner applicant Benjamin and Jacqueline Knuckles. Applicant is requesting approval of a boathouse.
Hold
The
on.
applicant,
No, we're missing one.
You skipped.
did I
I
skip?
want to bring up, I did talk to Attorney Hamas. So, you 8,
Did I miss D? 8D?
yes.
I'm sorry. Let me go back to 8D. DLC 08049940016, 2725 Hillside Drive, Delafield owner Heritage Hillside LLC, applicant Greg Hughes. Applicant seeks approval for an amended conditional use specific implementation plan for a planned development and multi-tenant sign program in order to modify the west facade and roof line of the existing building for future sign. The applicant here.
He is not. I told him he didn't have to come because this, I don't know if you recall, this property, you talked about it pre-COVID, and the applicant came through for a public hearing, and there was some discussion, but they withdrew, or they delayed their request for discussion and action because of COVID. So he reached out to me last week and asked to be put back on the agenda for consideration. It was since determined that the ordinance says that the Plan Commission has to act within 90 days of the public hearing, or a new public hearing has to be held. So we need to, I would like to ask for somebody to make a motion to schedule the public hearing so that we can move right into that at the August meeting as part of this agenda item.
Okay, I'll make the motion to schedule a public hearing for next month's meeting.
Second.
August 25th. Dave seconds. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. So that completes that item? Great. Okay, back to 9A. The applicant here? Great. Give us your name and address, please.
Jacqueline Evelyn Knuckles, 1555 Pumpkin Path in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, 53066.
Pumpkin Path?
Pumpkin Path. So what used to be Mark's Farm in Oconomowoc. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's literally an old pumpkin patch.
Right.
We really do Halloween well.
Okay, Amy, you want to tell us a little bit about this boathouse?
Sure. Okay, so this boathouse is on a property zoned RL1A residential lake. My report says it's part of a planned unit development environmental corridor, but that's not the case. I did a copy and paste and did not delete that. So there's no planned unit development or corridor. It's planned lake residential. It's a .65 acre lot in the southwest corner of Upper Neshota Lake. It was part of a 2-lot certified survey map that was recorded in 2015. Scott did recently issue a zoning permit for the new home. I think if you see on this survey, there are some significant retaining walls that need to be constructed. So they are proposing to, although they have a permit, begin construction on the boathouse first, and just because of all that grading that's required. According to Scott over there, the boathouse does comply to all dimensional standards of the ordinance. The boathouse, zoom in a little bit, is 14 feet wide by 24 feet deep, which is 336 square feet in size, and it is less than 11 feet in height. It'll be partially built into the hillside, so really shouldn't be very visible to the neighbors or obstructive. The siding material will match the home, which will be hardy plank boards in the color of aged pewter. The deck rails will consist of a cable rail system, and there will be 2 gooseneck lights on the lakeside and 1 at the access door on the east side of the boathouse. Right now, they are not proposing any internal or external plumbing. They're proposing a rain garden, which is shown with these green depictions on the, west side of the boathouse. And then the boathouse will slightly pitch, the roof of it will slightly pitch toward that rain garden. They're proposing a seed mix, which is included in the packet. There'll be lots of species of grasses, sedges, rushes, and wildflowers. However, the applicant did not show the specific dimensions of the rain garden or depth of it, and it is being built into a slope. So one of the conditions that I suggest is that the city planner review the dimensions and grading for the, I don't say grading, but the dimensions of the rain garden prior to approval, and I will take a look and make sure that it can function properly being built into a slope. And typically rain gardens are very shallow in depth in order to function properly. You don't want to turn it into a detention basin or actually, if they dig into a hillside, they might need retaining walls and a whole bunch of effort.
Yeah.
So we do need to look at that. The Lake Welfare Committee did meet just last Thursday, so I did not have this information in the report, but they did approve the boathouse contingent upon specifying the plant list, which is included in this packet, and then, or whether a mat's being used, but I don't know if a mat's being used or a seed mix, but either way, the species are listed in the material, and so it really doesn't matter at that point, knowing the list. And then to also show the calculated size and elevation of the rain garden based on the impervious surface. What the Lake Welfare noted that they don't show any patio area around in front of the boathouse or leading to the entrance. Anything that would be included would need to be considered for the rain garden purposes. So I would need to know that in order to approve it. And then they asked for a modification to the elevation of the boathouse to reflect the rain garden. So, the west side may need to be more or less exposed on the hillside depending on how they have to cut into that slope. They did submit a plan, but again, without having the dimensions of the rain garden, it's hard to verify whether or not that is or is not accurate. And then I have my recommendations of approval with all the standard conditions that I normally put in there for boathouses, with the add-on regarding the rain garden meeting the DNR publication that the dimensions of the garden be submitted to the city planner prior to the issuance of a building permit. As part of that, I'd certainly review the slope aspect of it.
Yeah, because if it's too steep, which the Lake Welfare Committee has seen that many times before, code does then ask that a water retention reservoir be installed, typically in these situations, behind the boathouse. And then the roof is pitched towards that direction and you install I'm not sure what's the right, do you remember the right word? There's a word for that. I forget
It's
what
it's like a cistern
Yeah,
or a
like-
French
Yeah.
drain. Or they could move the rain garden to the back and to the left because the contours in there are flatter. See where that is, Amy?
But are these steps there right now? I mean, because this might be a good spot over here, but I know that it looks like that might be where
Or is,
I can't read what that is. What, you know
they're. I
what that
think it
is?
says step.
Yeah, those are existing steps that were in there at the time of purchase.
So it must be pretty steep if there's steps, right?
I think there's actually only two, but there's a pretty steep hill that leads down to it.
let's
And
see,
my
if they
other
put, if they
question
put it
is-
to the back of, if they put it to the back and to the left,
Right here?
yep. That's only 1 foot and 12.
Do you know, did a landscape architect draw this, or how did this get put there in the first place?
Yes, we worked with the landscape architect who's also going to do the retaining walls, and so I think he, kind of did his rough up on. And I apologize, you have like the least educated person in this process. The builders were like, "Hey, you want to go to this meeting tonight?" I was like, "Oh, sure." I'm sure I'll have brilliant things to say. So I apologize, but yeah, I know he positioned it there, but it said, he could just as easily move it wherever is most appropriate, because he said it's pretty difficult to tell at this point without the final grading being done what would be the most effective place to put it. So he and the builder were still kind of working through that when they did these drawings.
Okay. And then, Scott, maybe you or Dave can help me here. I mean, just visually, it looks like the boathouse is pretty far set back from what appears to be the water's edge in this drawing. Seems unusually far back. Is that a bad perception on my part, or?
Most are between 5 and 10 feet. I don't think I've seen any more than 10 feet.
Yes, I can't tell how
And
far
I
that
can't,
is, but,
and I can't read that dimension.
yeah.
I think there's one at the corner.
You know what? I'm actually looking at their grading plan. It's a little hard to read, so I think we need to look at the grading plan very carefully. But the grading plan for the site, which is pretty extensive, they've got the huge retaining walls and home construction, flattens this area out. I think the final plan will be flatter than you think. It's not going to have a steep slope right there. They've got 880.
Yeah, but if you look,
They've got 880 on both sides of that rain garden.
Well, that'd be pretty tough to do. That means the neighbors has to be at 880.
So they're dropping. I mean, we got to look at it, and I can certainly help.
I'm just going by also what they have on the side of the boathouse. It's a constant pitch down.
See, right here, this is now going to be, from what I can tell, 880 that's running across. But this
Right.
is a blurred version, so we need to look at it. And then, see, they're cutting this.
But what's on the other side of the boathouse, the lake side? Contours.
Again, it's hard to tell, but I think that's 880 right here again.
That
So we
means-
need the elevations on the neighbor's property to make sure they're actually tying into existing grades on the neighboring property. So we'll review it. I mean, we will review it carefully unless you want to see it again, but we'll,
I mean, personally, I generally prefer to have the documents, correct, that we can see. If we don't have them that way, then I'd ask the applicant to prepare them that way and then bring them back to us.
Because I don't think that's flat on the other side.
yeah, it almost looks like, well, it's not on here. We have to know the existing contours. They almost have to have a retaining wall.
And we need to see where the high water mark is, and we need to know the depth of the boathouse from the lake.
Are we able to confirm the location and the elevation of the boathouse tonight? Are we just talking about the rain garden or the boathouse itself?
The boathouse is 7 feet from the lake, by the way.
Is that what does it say that?
Yeah, it's right in that corner.
And it's
There's
only
a
14
dimension.
feet deep. I think that survey, it's just a smaller property than it looks. So it looks further away, but that's 7 feet.
That
This
says
is the
7,
ordinary
yeah.
high,
Okay, I did not
that
see
solid
that.
line.
Can they put the boathouse foundation in soon? I mean, that's why they're here tonight. That's why the Lake Welfare Committee met.
I don't have a problem with where it is.
Well, I couldn't quite hear you, Scott.
Well, I think the Lake Welfare Committee had a special meeting just to get this through because of the extreme change in topography. I think they want to put that boathouse foundation in and work their way out of the property.
I see.
I think they want to put that foundation in soon, is what I was told. So, and I don't know, are we okay with the boathouse location and elevation?
We know it's 7 feet. You know, it's not more than, I mean, there's a rule around that. I don't know, I don't have it memorized how far back.
Well, you
Has
have to be at least 5.
Correct.
And it's 30, the total depth is, I
Is-
can't, 30 or 35. I
The,
don't,
the rear wall must not be more than 30 feet behind the front wall.
Right.
it's not, it's 20.
Right.
20.
So where the boathouse is, I don't see that being a problem.
Even on, I'm gonna say to the left, but I'm assuming that's to the west. 'Cause when we don't square the boathouse up to the water, we have 2 different dimensions, right? My only concern is that it's usable for boat storage. That's it, right? That's all I'm concerned about.
They put rails in.
Yeah.
They should be able to do it, whether the shoreline is on an angle or not.
The only thing, and I mean, if you guys are comfortable with Scott and I looking at it, I do think we have to look at the master grading plan carefully and make sure the grades tie into the neighbor's property with the construction of the physical boathouse, regardless of the rain garden.
I mean, if you and Scott are comfortable doing that and making sure that it does and approving it contingent on that,
I'm very comfortable.
knowing that we have the distance here, I guess I'm comfortable with it, because all the other stuff's right. And the retention, the area can hold the amount of water that's expected off the top because we still don't have those calculations.
Because they're looking at 180 square feet for the
Why
rain
don't-
garden at the worst.
Can we do this? Can we get them to submit the updated rain garden plan? Scott and I will do our preliminary review, make sure it works. If it works, then Scott could approve the foundation and it can come back to Plan Commission for actual
Or just the rain garden.
formal review for the rain garden. But Scott won't approve the foundation until we've at least made sure it functions.
Function for
is
it.
possible. Let's make sure it's a possible.
That sounds like a great plan.
Work.
It's a tight fit, and it's a tough topography, but work it out. I mean, it's,
Yep.
right?
And worst case, they can go to a in-ground. But that requires engineering.
Yeah. Well, which,
Yeah.
All right.
I'd make that motion.
Molly, you want to read that back?
So at this point, what I have is the motion to approve subject to the following conditions, so then all of the conditions listed in the planner's report with the additional, and the planner and building inspector approving grading temporarily until the plan is being updated and re-presented to the plan commission. But I feel like I'm missing something
But-
there.
I think if you said grading and rain garden plans,
Yeah.
I think it's good otherwise.
Hold on, so what are you and Scott specifically going out to look at and approve?
We're going to review and approve the grading and rain garden plans temporarily
Okay,
before Scott issues a approval for the boathouse structure. And then Plan Commission will give final review.
Yeah, the rain garden would come back here.
Rain garden.
All right, I'll second that.
Dave motioned, Ed seconded. Does Dan have any questions on this one?
No, I've been throwing some chats your way. I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Ed. Great, good luck with it.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy your new house, enjoy your boathouse, and welcome to the city of Delafield.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Feel free to call me if you have any questions.
I took copious notes, but I'm sure they don't make sense, so. Thanks so much.
Okay, 9B, DLC 08049990083200-3272 Gulf Road, owner Shops in Naguaki Equity LLC, and Shops in Naguaki Equity 4 LLC ETAL applicant Sean Becker. Applicant is requesting an update the multi-tenant sign program for this subject property. Name and address, please.
Hi, Sean Becker. Address is 3200 North Gulf Road through 3272 Gulf Road.
Perfect. Okay, Amy, give us an overview, please.
Okay, so the Shops of Naguaki are, that word kills me every time. But anyway, Shops of Naguaki is part of a planned unit development, includes the north and south sides of Gulf Road and several properties. There's a different specific implementation plans depending on the different phases. And anyway, several months ago, F45 came in and wanted to occupy part of the tenant space that was previously occupied by Famous Footwear. I did look at the specific implementation plan for that and the multi-tenant program signage, and the sign did not quite comply with the coloring or the height. They modified the height, and then we told them they could go ahead and have approval for the coloring, but that before any future tenants would be approved, they would need to amend the multi-tenant signage program. So that is what Sean is here to do. And then the multi-signage program is, there's a lot of specific criteria in here. It's laid out in the packet. I did not go into detail in the staff report regarding that. The only thing, I guess, I just want to go through a couple things, and I think Sean is willing, he may want to modify this program a little bit based on Sherwin-Williams' proposal, which is the next item on the agenda. So the current multi-tenant program allows, there's building C, which is the building with Qdoba, Panera, those uses, noodles. They're currently allowed to have 3 signs, 1 on each wall if they're on an end cap, where his new proposal is limiting to 2. So that he may want to consider continuing to allow 3 if they're on an end cap. So that would end of the building and then also along Gulf Road and 94. And then related to Sherwin-Williams specifically, they had their raceway dimensions don't comply with the new multi-tenant program, and the color of their trim cap and returns don't comply with the colors that have been chosen in here. So what I'm suggesting is that we approve this, but if you're okay, maybe a couple of those things can be modified with review and approval by the city planner. That would then accommodate Sherwin-Williams. One other thing, so I know this is the next agenda item, but it happens to be that Sherwin-Williams is not on an end wall. There's one, so you've got Famous Footwear, they're in the middle. I think there'll be 3 tenant spaces total.
Correct.
They're in the middle. So they get 1 sign, right?
They get 1 sign. That per the multi-tenant program, I mean, I know that Sean wants to propose a sign along Gulf Road to allow Sherwin-Williams. So I don't know if that's something you want to discuss.
I don't understand what that request is. Per the existing sign program, they get 1 sign on the building right above their door.
Yeah, but he's proposing to modify that multi-tenant program. So it is.
For
it
just
could-
that building or other buildings?
Both, to their property, which includes the both Best Buy building and the, I'll call it Panera building.
So right now, you get one sign above your door, and if you're on an end cap, you get
Two.
two.
On-
One above your door
Build-
and then on your side.
Yep, buildings, well, actually, both buildings, if you have three, I mean, like, you could have one on, depending on how many frontages you have.
So take Panera, for example.
They could have three right now.
They could have three.
Yes.
And so could, what's the last one? Qdoba?
Or Noodle.
No,
well,
Qdoba can't because Qdoba doesn't
who's at the
front.
end?
Noodles is on one side.
Are
and
they at the other
Qdoba-
end?
They share the end.
They share the end. Noodles and Qdoba share the end.
So they each like, Noodles
Oh,
gets
because they're a combined
94,
business?
Qdoba gets Gulf Road.
Okay.
So
So
they
each of
get-
those two end caps
They get
gets
one sign.
up to 3 signs, and everybody in between gets 1 sign or 2?
Well, on building C, which is that building, they get 2 because
'Cause there's-
most of those front both 94 and.
Understood.
um,
And you're
Gulf.
happy with that on that building, or you're trying to change that?
Yeah, so we're content with that on that building.
Okay, so let's move over to the other building. On that building, Best Buy has an end cap, so they get 3 signs. That-
They could have, I think they only have 2.
Correct.
they-
Because you don't really
Yeah,
need
no.
anything.
Well, and that's true, because their backside is a hill or whatever, so they only need 2. So you have 3 tenants taking up what used to be the foot care place, and the current rule would say your end cap, which is not Sherwin-Williams, could have 2. Is that what the current
Yes.
program
Yeah.
says?
Yes.
Okay. And then, and the 2 new ones that you're adding are in between, because F-45 is in there now too, right?
Yeah, they're on
So
the,
it's
they're closest to
Sherwin-Williams?
Best Buy.
So it's Sherwin-Williams, F-45, and then Best Buy?
Correct, yeah.
So those 2 typically would only get 1. So what are you asking for, different from that?
So we're seeking to have, because Sherwin-Williams is a major tenant, they're going
Yeah.
to occupy the majority of that space. It's an
Yeah.
8,000 square foot space being demised into 3. They're taking 3844 of that. And being that they are a national, long-established business, we'd like to give them the benefit of that end cap space,
Okay.
the signage.
Yeah.
Because they are restricted to just the single signage as proposed.
Okay, and so where are you proposing that extra sign go?
So East Justified on the north facade.
The north facade?
Yeah.
How come you didn't put them on the end cap?
Well, their use, they would, it's beautifully
They don't want the
glazed.
windows.
Yes, exactly. They would put displays. So our goal was to.
Paint store.
Yeah. It would be an excellent, coffee shop or something of that nature, better use to utilize this line.
Okay. So the end cap would, that little place is still gonna get 2, and now you're asking for an extra one for Sherwin-Williams.
Correct.
So it's making an exception?
Or not
He's-
allow the.
Or not allow the
allow
change
and-
and only make them keep 1, or say, okay, because it's Sherwin-Williams, we'll allow you to change your multi-sign program and add another one. I mean, I don't know, if you're gonna make the exception for Sherwin-Williams, I mean, I don't really care who the store is, why wouldn't you do it for F-45 too?
Yeah.
If you're gonna make the exception, I don't understand the logic of doing it for one and not the other.
Or let Sherwood-Williams go there, and whoever goes on the end cap only gets 1 sign.
Right, that's what.
You could do that too.
So that,
Yeah, not that they
I was thinking
wind
the
up coming
same
here
thing.
and demanding it.
Where you
you-
allow
could-
Sherwin-Williams on that end cap, but whoever's on that corner just on the front.
Would that require a change in the existing multi-tenant sign program, or?
Yes, but that's what he's proposed, so that's what he's here for right now, is to modify the multi-tenant
Yeah.
program. I think he has to make a couple of tweaks, so your, if you approve that, would be contingent upon him modifying the multi-tenant program. I could review it with whatever you would agree to.
What I think I heard Ed say was, you can have one other sign facing Gulf Road, and it can be any of those 3 tenants. You pick.
Yeah, essentially, that's exactly what it'd be. Instead, this way, it would prevent stacking up of additional
Yeah,
signage on there.
because that's what I don't think we want that.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
no.
Okay.
are you comfortable with the restriction that the end cap would not get a sign?
They get one sign,
On
golf.
golf.
And I guess, and just to clarify, if it was justified left or east or west as opposed to vertically, would there be any consideration along that line? Or restricting just to one sign?
It's just one sign on the end cap.
Okay. I think that would be.
And he should, I'd recommend you write it that it could be any one of those three tenants could have that option. But
And
you
only
only get
one.
one sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that way if it changes in the future,
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
right.
So do we have to take, were we just really discussing and you'll come back with an updated document, or are you looking for a motion?
No, I
or-
think, I mean, I'm comfortable with a motion being made to approve the multi-tenant program with a change that,
Golf
Well-
roadside can be any of the three businesses?
yeah, I mean, there are two things. One, so here's what he has. End cap tenants will be allowed a second sign on the end wall, subject to landlord approval and permit approval by the city of Delafield. I recommend that you allow 3 signs on the end walls for building C, because that's what the old multi-tenant program
Yeah.
allowed. And that building D be allowed 1 sign on the north end of the building that can be occupied by any one of the tenants, but limited to 1 sign. And that the south side be limited to 1 sign on each side of the building. Does that make sense?
It does. I think, yeah, our proposal was overly restrictive
Yep.
within the guidelines.
And then there was,
So on that, if
Yeah.
if we, just move on to the next item and he rewrites that and submits it, I would think you wouldn't need to be here if you write it that way. I don't know where you came from, but
Well, I personally live in Plymouth.
we wouldn't want you to make you drive here from Plymouth again.
like Plymouth, Wisconsin?
Yes.
That's where I grew up.
Really? Yeah, we live right outside.
Another big community.
Yeah.
as a cheese factory.
It is.
Which I worked in. There was something else here. Raceways to be 5 inches by 3.5 inches aluminum extrusion.
Is that a change, or is that what they're already doing?
The other one just wasn't this specific. The Sherwin-Williams is proposing, I think, 8 inch by 8 inch. Unless I'm misinterpreting what aluminum extrusion means.
I mean, in my mind, if I can't see the difference between what the signs look like now and what they're going to look like, it's hard for me to make a choice.
Do you care how big the raceways are?
Our
I
goal
don't
is
know that we would.
consistency. Yeah.
So you have to decide, Sherwin-Williams can change their sign to meet your multi-tenant program. I mean, that's actually how I wrote the next item, is that they have to meet your multi-tenant program. And then there is a color too.
Yes, I believe we added a 4th color.
Their returns and backs were painted shutter brown, and I think you put in there something about black. So if you want theirs to be black, then they just have to meet their standards. But those don't seem like big issues for them to meet. The number of signs, though.
Well, every corporation has their own sign look, and kind of gotten away from colors and things like that.
Well,
In
but
this
the-
area anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, these are the trims in the raceway. I would be careful with
Are we talking of the
raceways.
pylon sign raceways, or are we talking a raceway on a sign that's attached to the building? I guess I don't
Raceway
understand.
attached to the building, right? It's I mean, it's his proposal, so I
Yep.
just want to make sure he understands it, that Sherwin-Williams does not comply.
And I would request to rework that as well, because I think the original intention was to match the facade shading. And I think that's what was in the, or that was what was in the original signage plan. So I think that would be something I'd request to change as well.
So most of the ones I review just say that the raceways have to match the facade.
Yeah. We worked with an outside partner on this.
Okay.
And
So, I mean, that could be an easy fix.
Looks like you'll be continuing to work with them.
well, he actually retired. Convenient enough, so.
What about the size of the raceway? Does that,
So I would defer to, we would not want to deviate from what is allowable. So I don't, to the extent that there is no restriction on that size, I would seek to omit that.
so the way I'm getting this is he could, so what I have is recommend approval as proposed or as amended by the property owner in order to modify provision 8, which is the number of signs. I think if you agreed with what he's recommending, you'd probably say approval as proposed, subject to a modification that the raceway match the facade and that the end caps on building C be allowed one sign on 3 sides of the building, and building D be allowed 1 sign on the north side of the building, limited to 1 tenant only.
One of the 3 tenants only.
I mean, could it be Best Buy?
I would prefer to limit it to those.
3?
Yeah.
Any of the 3 businesses in building D is specified in a different building?
No, it's the same. It's building D.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I would say, I mean, they say the tenant spaces that was previously occupied by Famous Footwear, or is that too?
No, because
Yeah, well, nobody's gonna know.
30 years from now, they'll go,
Okay,
where
so
was
what
that?
about the 3 tenant spaces that does not include the southernmost tenant space then? Right?
Sure.
Unless
Could
that
be
big,
broken up.
unless that big box gets broken up.
That,
Actually, I was gonna,
and then they'll be back.
I was gonna ask him, maybe it would make sense to just leave it open to any occupant of building D, but for this case, it would be Sherwin-Williams. Just not to restrict future use, I guess.
I don't think we care who it is. I
Okay.
mean, you get one. You pick it.
Sounds good.
Okay, Molly, you want to read that back?
Yeah. Read it back.
And to approve as proposed by the property owner in order to modify provision number 8 as suggested in the staff report with the change that 3 signs are allowed on building C, and building D.
For end cap
End cap.
tenants. End cap tenants.
Have something about 1 sign on 3 walls. Do you want to add that still to this building C limitation?
No.
And then building D is to have 1 sign on the north side of the building, limited to any of the 3 businesses in building D.
And
Any
change
tenant.
any tenant in building D.
I think you're leaving that, right? You're keeping
The size restriction? If I could remove that.
oh, remove it.
So we're gonna remove raceway size restriction and add in or change the raceway will match the facade.
The color of the facade.
I'll make that
Somebody want to
motion.
make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Okay. Somebody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. The dynamic duo over there today. All right. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention passes. Okay.
If you don't mind, work with me quickly so that we can move Sherwin-Williams.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So do you want us to go over 9C, or are we skipping that?
No, I think we should, well, not, let's just quick go through it.
Okay.
Real quick.
So number 9C, DLC 0804999008 3272 Gulf Road, Unit B, owner Shops on Nagawaki Equity LLC and Shops on Nagawaki Equity 4 LLC, applicant Innovative Signs. Applicant seeks approval of permanent signage in order to advertise a newly proposed business known as Sherwin-Williams. Is that you again, or do we have another gentleman coming up?
I think it's me again.
Okay.
I didn't know if someone from Innovative Science was here.
I can just real quickly, normally this would be on the consent agenda. The only reason why it's not is because the multi-tenant signage program needed to be approved. They're proposing the same sign on the north side of the building and along the parking lot. Each sign will be 49.37 square feet. Blue, white, and red, the trademark colors of Sherwin-Williams are the proposed colors. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about? The sign will now comply with the modified multi-tenant program. I do have in here that there's no illumination, but did you tell me today that there is illumination?
There is, on the cut sheet that I was provided from Dual-Light, the manufacturer, they were identifying these signs as illuminated. I'm seeing it in the letters section of the
Yeah.
cut sheet.
So with that, I would just say that we have the standard condition. I don't have it in front of me. No more than 40-foot candles, so many inches away from the building, 10 inches away from the building, I think. We could always make the motion subject.
I'll make a motion to approve the Sherwin-Williams signage, provided that its staff approves compliance with our city code.
I'll second.
All right.
I'll second.
Got it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions passes.
Forget that Dan's out there.
Yep. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just trying to figure out if he voted. I heard him on the last couple of votes. I did not hear him on the vote for the
Multi-tenant
signage
sign.
program or for this one either. Voting affirmative on last two. Okay, we're good.
Got
So,
it.
thank you, Dan. I'm gonna have
Okay.
We'll be well there.
All right, 12, zoning and ordinance revisions. A, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Discussion regarding text amendments related to community-based residential facilities. This matter is postponed to be delayed until the August agenda. Any questions about that? Okay. Report of city officials, should be 13. A, planning commission meeting dates and deadlines, regular meeting August 25th, 2021. Two, regular meeting submittal deadline is August 10th, 2021. I'll refer you to correspondence, planners report.
The only thing that I guess I would add is I've been asked to look at considering language for food trucks. The Common Council has discussed that item, is that correct? Where right now, there's not specific language necessarily related to operable food trucks, and so we may propose language that specifies when they're not allowed.
Yeah, I'll just add, my impression of the meeting was that we were interested to know what other communities are doing that solves a problem that may or may not exist.
Actually, Conomowoc is planning to tear down a building
And so this
to
isn't
create
part
a
of the
space.
discussion right now.
Right, we
Yeah.
can discuss it.
Oh,
We're doing it in the
It's not on
future.
the
Let's bring
agenda.
that one in.
Yeah, we got you. We beat you.
Good, good, good. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, so we might see it sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Did you
it's a
want to
great idea.
mention anything about the focus group coming?
Yeah, I can. So the Economic Development Focus Group just wrapped up their last meeting the night of the last Bucks game. So we worked swiftly and efficiently, but we did. They did a really nice job providing recommendations to the city. What I'm going to do now is take their recommendations and prepare a final report. And then I'll present that final report and ask Administrator Hefner to come with me to you and the Common Council, probably as part of a joint.
We kind of kicked this all off with a joint meeting, so we'd like to conclude it in the same way.
And, essentially what they did is they started by identifying properties throughout the city that they thought should be discussed. We discussed them, and they provided recommendations for changes. And so that'll be in the report along with a potential timeline for bringing them formally forward for amendment to the city pretty incrementally so that it's not biting off too much at one time. But potentially quickly.
We'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
Was that first joint meeting, was that on a Monday or a Wednesday? Do you remember?
They were all on Tuesday nights.
No, but our joint meeting was on a Tuesday night too?
I don't know.
I'm just
And repeat it.
food for thought, pick on the other team, like whoever was whoever had to add the extra day in their agenda. I don't remember if it was me or not, I was at both of them, so. So if we made council double down on the first one, we should probably pick on planning commission the second time. Just a thought, be fair.
Or you may have both had to come to another meeting.
I don't know.
remember.
I don't remember.
We can't discuss it, but you were at every meeting, weren't you, Laura?
Yes. Yeah. It was really good, and it was very informative, and I felt that more people should have been there because it kind of gives a forecast of what could happen in the future.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea, because I've been checking the website for like the survey and the reports and stuff.
Yes,
When?
so the cost of community services is on there.
Yeah.
If you go there, the survey information is not in its own site. It's still buried in the focus group information. So that's a good reminder. I will move it to the next week.
And your final report will be on there too.
Final report will be on there, but that's going to take a
little while.
little bit.
Okay. Could you let us know at one of these meetings
When it's there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We're hoping to have this meeting within, we said, August?
Yeah, I think I told them that I would be done within a month. So August, I think we were planning for September.
Oh, that'd be good.
Because I need to finish the report and send it out to the committee for their review.
Yeah.
They might have more significant changes than I anticipate.
Yeah.
Yeah, August sounds good.
Yeah. I think September.
So we were thinking of a September, I'm pretty sure.
End of September.
Some people have a tendency to remember things that.
August 32nd.
All right, the much awaited for and ballyhooed building inspector report.
I really have nothing more to add.
Oh, rats.
Well, you're gonna have some new home
Right.
constructions here soon.
Good.
All right, number 11, seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 8:34. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those that are watching on TV.
Thank you guys for setting up the Zoom. I appreciate it. Dan here.
Have a good night, Dan.